Hi, Shalini. Good afternoon.
Hi,
Pleasure
Sankalp.
meeting you.
Same here.
I'm Sankalp. Welcome to the Launch in India podcast. And then, we have started this a whole series where we are trying to tap the untapped. Calling the guest where the founders, of the portfolios get some help. Apart from the tokenomics and the general trivia that Web3 follows, right? So today with us we have Shalini. She is Levitate's coach, where she's coaching the founders and will coach the founders in the longer run in regard to the presentations, in regard to the pitch decks, in regard to what to speak, what not to speak, and most importantly what to avoid during those times. So Shalini, just to set the context up, if you would want to position some 2-3 lines so that we have the whole narrative straight up, and then we can jump into the questions directly.
Thank you. Thank you, Sankalp, for having me here. And I am very happy and glad to be partnering with Levitates as the communication coach. And I'm happy to help all the founders that are associated with Levitate Labs. And I've had the opportunity to meet a few of the founders before, and I think I have seen a certain challenge that founders generally face. And today I would like to share some tips and some knowledge base with you that can help the new founders and the younger generation to strengthen their footing in this world.
Sure thing. I think let's probably understand. I've got a few questionnaire with myself, so
Sure.
that we can the pick up your understanding in terms of the proficiency side of the things.
Yeah.
Instead of the general tech and the business trivia. So, I mean, we definitely have heard the first impression matters, right?
Yeah.
But in the startup world, those first few minutes of a pitch can be make or the break, right?
Yeah.
If you had 3 minutes to present something meaningful to the potential investors, how should
Mm-hmm.
founders structure their pitch to make it count? Because we have hosted recent demo day in Bangalore during December. It's
Mm-hmm.
like a Shark Tank setup where the investors and the angels on the other one side and the pitchers were on the other side. Now the challenge is, and the catch here was that they had only 3 minutes to pitch, and the investors had 3 minutes for the Q&A, right? Few people definitely got juggled up that what to pick, what not to pick. So definitely would like to pick your brain around it for sure.
That's a wonderful question and a very important problem statement I think the founders face today. So when as a founder or as a team member who's building something, we invest a lot of energy into our company, our product, or our idea. And we want to tell the story, we want to tell everything. But unfortunately, we don't have all the time in the world to do that. And
Right.
also, we don't have, the investors or your potential partners' attention for that longer time. So you've got a very limited time slot and a very limited attention span to ensure that you hit the iron. So,
Mm-hmm.
how do you do it? So, the
Mm-hmm.
first and foremost, first important thing that you should always remember, it doesn't matter what you want to tell. What's more important is what does the other person want to listen. So know your
Mm-hmm.
audience, know who you're talking to, and know what are they interested in. So once you nail that, I
Mm-hmm.
think half the job is done. So first of all, convince yourself it's not important what I want to tell them, it's more important what they want to listen. And
Yeah.
here's a structure that I can suggest that the founders can follow. The first is start with a compelling hook. Use the first 30 seconds with a very compelling hook which will grab their attention. Now, this is this. I want to give an example which is not essentially related to the Web3 world, but let's say somebody says every year 1.3 billion tons of food is wasted globally while millions of people struggle with hunger. What if we could
Sure.
solve both problems at once? So, now I've stated a problem and I'm telling you that I can solve it, and I've given numbers. So,
Mm-hmm.
I've got your attention, and now you will listen to me because you're invested in the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And all it took me was two sentences, right? So if your
Mm-hmm.
first 30 seconds, if they could be addressing a problem that your product or service solves in a very
Mm-hmm.
layman term, it is not necessary that the other person is very technically aware. So have a
Mhm.
generic problem that you're trying to solve as simplified as possible, and you will have every listener's attention right away. So that's your opportunity to capture.
So
So when
hook.
you're, yeah,
Yeah. So
hook
hook.
is my
Hook.
first thing. Yeah, yeah,
Okay. So hook is something which, and so attention span is something which you need to grab in those first initial, 10 to 30 seconds of the time frame, so
yeah,
that you speak what they would want to listen. I mean, definitely a
correct.
good takeaway,
Yeah,
right? But
yeah,
let's try to break it down in a more simpler format,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
See, I mean, while I also have to defend the other side of the table when the startups when these founders pitch, right? They
yeah.
have this sense of a rush that whether my product is good or not, whether the investor
Mm-hmm.
will say yes or not. I mean, people, when they start speaking, I'm pretty sure that a lot of, will them of them will resemble that we enter into a self-validation method or the
Yeah,
self-validation thing that जो मैं बोल रहा हूँ वो ठीक है कि नहीं? I mean, am I saying the right thing or not, right?
yeah.
So, so now, the whole thing can still be solvable just by breaking down into the complex thing into one, like three or four simple components, like in a block structure, so that people navigate through those blocks and understand, okay, nahi, theek hai, I'm just doing the right stuff now, and some nitty-gritties as well. So, I mean, what are those core components of those of that 3 minute pitch of that or that hook or just 30 seconds thing? Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. So we covered the first 30 seconds, right? Like have
Hmm.
a hook which is where you're either you have a problem, that's the best way to go about it, or
Sure.
engage emotionally with the person. So let's use
Okay.
the same example of the problem that I stated before. Um,
Hmm.
Another way could be, in fact, one third of all food produce goes to waste, while families in undeserved communities struggle to access fresh food. Now, here I have
Hmm.
used a very emotional angle, right?
Hmm.
It's not very data oriented or something. So pick what works for you and use 30 seconds accordingly. Second
Hmm.
thing that you should do is now start introducing the solution. You've used the first part to state the problem and
Yeah.
everybody is now interested. Use that opportunity and use the next 1 minute to introduce the solution that you have built. Present your product and service, explain the value to it. And keep it simple and clear. Avoid jargon as much as possible. People
Yeah.
think that if I use jargon, if I use technical terms, other person would be impressed. No, they will not be. They know you're building a product, so they will assume that you know all of these things. That is
Yeah.
the jargon. And so don't use jargon, don't complicate things, keep it simple.
Yeah.
And like they say, if you can explain it to a 5-year-old kid what you're doing,
Yeah.
you are a master of it. So the more
Yeah.
simplified way of talking, the better
Mm.
it is. So now present your product and service and explain the value that you're adding. Um, so that's where a tech driven platform that connects retailers with local food banks to distribute
Mhm.
surplus food and reduce waste. So that's a solution statement
Yeah.
that you have
Yeah.
come up with for the previous
Yeah.
problem. So we'll be using the same problem throughout our session today, so that I can
Sure.
explain all these things.
Sure.
So yeah, so that's the second. So we have covered a minute and 30 seconds.
Hmm.
The third thing that you should do is market opportunity. Now you've given
Yeah.
a problem, you've stated the solution. Now you have to also, now they're investors, they're very invested in knowing
Yeah.
if what they're doing is, if there's a return of investment or not.
Yeah.
Now explain the market opportunity, tell the size of the opportunity. Now your data is very important here. How
Hmm.
many consumers do you foresee, what value can they add, how much, how many $1 billion of market is this? Because
Hmm.
that's when their second attention point comes. Oh, this is a big opportunity, the size is
Hmm.
huge, and we can definitely get a pie or get a chunk from this. And when you're doing this market opportunity thing, while you're explaining the size, you also have to say why now. Why is it important now? Are we 5 years early? Are we 10 years late? So why is today's time an opportune time for us to bring this service or product in the market? So that could be the
Okay.
third thing that you do. And
Sure.
then you have to slowly transition into proof of traction. See, you have worked hard in building what you're building, right? So
Hmm.
use something like, In just 6 months, we have onboarded 50 plus retailers and delivered over 500,000 meals to families in need.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've given metrics of what you have done, what you have worked so far. Maybe mention revenue, user growth, partnership, early
Yeah.
adopters. All
Yeah.
these things are important. And a founder would be in certain position to at least introduce some things at this point, right? So tell them what your proof of concept has been so far, how it's working, and how many early adopters have been there. Is there a social proof that you can give, like a pilot program that maybe you have run,
Mm-hmm.
depending on what your service and product is? So that's where your fourth step is. You start giving the proof of traction. So just to summarize so far, we have the hook in the beginning where we are introducing our problem or we are using an emotional angle. Then we are
Mm-hmm.
giving our solution, and we are spending most time in explaining our solution. And then we are telling about the market opportunity, what's the size, why the time is right now. Then we are,
Mm-hmm.
supporting all of this by giving a proof, while
Mm-hmm.
while putting money where your mouth is, right? Like, yes, I'm
Yeah.
saying all of this, but hey, I have got proof. I've tried and I've tested in a small proportion, and
Mm.
here's the proof of how it's worked. And then you should the one thing that I've seen people miss is not give next steps. Fine, you've
Yeah.
given me all of this, what do I do with this information? So
Mm-hmm.
immediately when you're ending it, have next steps in it. Either ask a question, or
Mm-hmm.
either, if you're very sure what your next step is, say it. For example, we are currently raising $1 million seed round to expand our platform's reach and scale nationally. That's
Mm-hmm.
your next step. So this is what I'm trying to do next, and here's
Mm-hmm.
your opportunity as a listener to pitch in. This is what I
Mm-hmm.
want, this is what I'm looking for in today's pitch, right? So now there's a clear motive of what the next action is, and I'm not wondering what does this person want from me, right? Okay, I've listened, I'm convinced, I'm impressed. What do I do with this
Yeah.
information? So always end with what's the call to action. That's absolutely important. If not that, it could be as simple as, let's schedule a follow-up meeting to discuss how we can collaborate further, because it's not necessary
Right.
you're always talking to an investor. Maybe you're talking to
Right.
a potential
Right.
partner,
Mm.
right? So it could be anything, but a call to action or next step is absolutely important. So those are my 5 steps that I would like to suggest for anybody who's trying to do a small pitch, like a 3 minute or a 4 minute pitch. And if they can follow these steps, I think they are good.
And if they would want to increase it to up to 30, I think they just have to, explain and elaborate these pointers in a way so that the
Yeah.
translations and the navigation has to be in a in a more sensible way, I would say, right?
Yeah, so I think these steps can be used for a 30 minutes pitch as well. It's just that
Which
you
as well.
start giving more proportion time to each of these steps. Probably
Correct.
spend a lot of time on solution and market opportunity and proof of traction, the middle part of it, right?
Correct.
So the way to look at is opening, body, and conclusion. So spend
Hmm.
more time on the body part of it, where you're talking about your service, product, and everything.
So I was on a call with this founder the other day. I think it was somewhere between around in October last year,
Okay.
and this guy, like literally told that I've been speaking to roughly 50, 60 founders, sorry, investors so far, and
Mm-hmm.
I've done something great in the past as well. I've raised for my other project too, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just not able to do it this time, right? So
Okay.
people has this sense of dilemma as well. I mean, they kind of underrate themselves. I don't know what literally go on to their mind, but this is, I mean, kind of a founder's burnout. If I would have to position this particular name, but we probably can touch upon this particular point as well if you have anything to say around it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And this, I am sure, is a very common problem. See, there's
Yeah,
limited resources in the investors pool as well, right? There are
sure.
only certain number of investors who are interested in a certain market and at a certain
Correct.
point in time. But there are a lot many founders trying to grab that uh, money or that slot. So we have a lot of competition for sure. So let's take example of this guy who's done 50 pitches and has not succeeded. How
Hmm.
many iterations of changes has his pitch gone through? That would be my first question. If
Yeah.
his pitch has not gone through any change, then that's a problem because he's not
Mm-hmm.
learned from his mistakes. Let's say
Mm-hmm.
for the first five investors, they would have asked certain questions, they would have asked certain data points or whatever their questions were changes in the pitch made based on those questions, because they were
Mm-hmm.
not covered in the pitch, right? That's why they were
Yeah.
asking, something was not clear. So you need to identify a pattern of how your listeners are responding and make a change
Right.
to your pitch accordingly, right?
Right.
We cannot have a one size fits all solution, but there's a guideline that we can always
Mm.
give, but they
Mm.
have to keep adapting to what the market wants and what the
Yeah.
investors market wants. So that's my first question that I would ask. Second, is the service or product relevant? Because after
Mm-hmm.
50 pitches, if a credible person is not able to raise money, somebody who's done it before, then I think we need to start looking at other areas than his own skill set of presenting, whether the product or service in itself is relevant. Is there any change that investors would want to see in his product or service that would um, make it interesting for them to invest? So maybe a slight attention can be paid in that area as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that's where I would like to go. That keep
Yeah.
iterating, keep changing your pitch
Yeah.
if it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
working. Don't, and then that's why it's disappointing, right? Because if I'm
Yeah.
using the same recipe again and again, then
Mm-hmm.
of course it can be, it's natural that a person would burn out.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I think, so when he came up with a similar, uh, you know, uh, mindset, I just simply told him that if you hit the, iron nail on a rod in the wall, right,
Yeah,
you might as well not be able to succeed because of that iron feature, the state of
correct.
matter. But if you just shift yourself by an inch or something, I think you should be able to plug in that particular nail into the wall directly, right? So
That's
so
perfectly
completely
said.
understood. I think iteration does work. Iteration, the multiple iterations will lead you to the consistency. So I was reading this book called The Almanac of Naval Ravikant, and there's
Yeah,
this powerful diagram into it where the triangle is converted into a square, then into a
yeah,
pentagon, hexagon, heptagon, octagon, and until you reach that circular, shape of it, and then you just repeat it over and over time so that you get the most optimal result,
yeah.
out of it as well. So yeah, I mean, definitely resonate with the iterations part too. So definitely we talked about the core components that we should keep in the mind, and I think iterations is one of the I mean, not in front of the pitches, but before preparing, prepare for the pitch. I think that iteration should also be a core component pre-pitch, phase as well. So, definitely would like to understand that. Given that, let's say 3 minute was just a matter of time, but let's say if a person has got a 30 minute, where 15 minutes is for him to talk about the project, and the rest 15 is to have the investors Q&A. Generally, people who come for a Google Meet, or like an online pitching session, they do it in this fashion because I mean, people don't have a rush, for the multiple companies to come along. But in demo days, the things are pretty different. So, if I take a consider of 15-minute pitch and 15-minute Q&A, right? What are the key
Mhm.
components that can be prioritized, and what are the general, mistakes that founders commit during that time, and you think that should be avoided as well and can be avoided too?
Okay, okay. Uh, so let's say for the 15-minute pitch, I would
Mm.
say focus more on the solution market opportunity part. Like try
Right.
to talk more, focus on it because you're still in the startup, you're still in the
Correct.
phase one stage of your life cycle. So maybe you don't have a lot of information in traction to show proof of concept and all of that. So
Mm-hmm.
most people will definitely have clear solution, clear product concept, and of
Mm-hmm.
course they would have done enough research on market opportunity. So
Mm-hmm.
those are the two areas I would like them to focus more on. So maybe if we go by our structure of 5 points, spend
Yeah.
maybe 1 minute in grabbing the attention, giving a nice problem statement, and
Mm-hmm.
having an emotional angle, but then spend next 5 to 8 minutes on your solution, then spend 5 minutes again on your market opportunity, and then again spend last 2 3 minutes in if there's any proof of concept,
Yeah.
and the call to action. So that is how I would distribute the whole structure when
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing a pitch. See, structure is absolutely important. I cannot go to a meeting and say, I am building a certain product and it does these things. Why would anybody listen to me? So I need to show them a path. That's why introducing a problem statement is absolutely important, because that gives the listener a direction of where this conversation is going.
Yeah.
So I would emphasize on that. Have a good opening, curate
Sure.
it according to your own style, but have an opening and then start with your actual content, and then definitely have a closing, like a summary kind of a thing, and a call to action. So that's on the 15-minute thing. Then coming to the common um, pitfalls, that common mistakes that founders make, things to avoid. One common mistake is overloading with details. Like I said, I am
Mm.
invested in my startup, right? So I want to share everything, but
Mm.
that's not right way to do it. You
That's not
cannot
right.
overload them. Yeah. So have a structure that I want to introduce these 3 points today, these 4 points today, and that's about it. So
Mm-hmm.
for first mistake is overloading with details. To
Mm-hmm.
don't try to cover everything. You have limited time, so stick
Mm-hmm.
to the core message. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
don't get too technical. They're not interested in what
Yeah.
softwares you're using or what's the
Yeah.
backend technology,
Yeah.
so don't get
Yeah.
into that. Then second mistake is similarly lack of focus. So many founders would jump from topic to topic without a clear narrative. So
Yeah.
the pitch flow should be a little logical, that why am I going from here to here? Why am I introducing my team members at this point? Is there any
Mm-hmm.
relevance to it? Given
Mm-hmm.
the time, is it adding value to the time? So that lack
Mm-hmm.
of some, I have seen somebody, they went on and on telling about how their CTO is from a certain college, how their CFO is from a certain college, and what's their background. That's so irrelevant for me in these 15 minutes, right? So lack of focus is the second mistake. The third mistake is failure to make the problem statement clear. So, if you don't make that problem statement where you're starting your whole pitch clear, I might be confused as a listener to what we're doing. So, if the audience won't understand why the solution matters. So, if your
Mm-hmm.
problem isn't clear, your product's relevance is also equally not clear.
It's
So
also,
that's a
yeah.
yeah. So that's
Yeah.
important. And then not ending with a clear ask. That's the fourth common mistake that I have seen, that they would just say thank you, this is my product, these are the services we provide, this is how we are doing it, thank you.
Mm. Mm.
So
Mm.
not having that ask,
Yeah.
what is it I
Call to
want to do.
action. Yeah. Call to
Yeah,
action point is again into the picture. Yeah. Understood. Uh,
absolutely.
so I've got another point to add over here. So whenever these, so Levitate does host a lot of bunch of demo days globally as well, right? And when people ask that why we are giving only like such a shorter time to pitch, right?
Hmm.
What should we speak about? I mean, I have got a s- presentation of 34 slides into it. I have to run down with them all. I just, because I mean it's like a momentarily answer. I just simply told them, dude, probably you just speak about your impact that you can create it, right? Because the I mean the presentation is like a document that is a shareable post the call as well. I mean post that particular meeting as well. So probably I think it is good to talk about the problem in a more layman, in a more resemblance way, where the people also on the other side of the table relate to it like very fast, and then they hear the solutions which they
Yeah,
hadn't hear in the past as well. So this brings to the another question, that story, I mean everyone has lived their life left, right, center, been there, done that, grinding all the stuff, right? So I think people have realized a bunch of life lessons out of it. So uh, wherever we go, public speaking or presentations, or just like us in the podcast, right? People does talk about their personal lives or personal stories, because at the end of the day all human beings behavior is kind of very similar. It's just a
yeah,
matter of time who is where and who is not at that particular
yeah.
position. So so do you feel that storytelling, and primarily the personal story, that should conclude to the problem statement and hence the solution will be a right point to put up during the pitch as well. I mean, given that it's an investment pitch.
Mhm. Um, my broader answer is yes. Storytelling always works when you're trying to connect with somebody at a personal level.
Right.
Humanizing the pitch is always going to help you.
Right.
But the thing um, is it relevant for your service or product? Because we are
Right.
in a very technical space, I'm not
Hmm.
sure how skillful a founder would be to do it in the right way.
Right.
Storytelling is the best way to get your message across. I have seen in Shark Tank as well, like we mentioned in the
Yeah.
beginning, if you see a
People do
lot
that.
of people do that. And they tell their personal problems, that my sister was
Yeah.
facing this problem, my wife was
Yeah.
facing this
Yeah.
problem, my family was facing this problem. That's when I thought that I want to do something, and I made this, and this has helped millions of others people. Of course, it's such an impactful story, but the thing is, you have to do it in the right way. Otherwise, in the pursuit of getting that emotional attention, you might
Yeah.
lose on selling your own
Yeah.
product. And the only reason I'm saying it with this mixed emotion is because we are in a technical space. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure if people will be able to do it in a right way. But yes, they can try with
Hmm.
all of you first and see if it works, and then maybe do it with actual investors. So
Yeah. I mean,
you have to be very careful.
sometimes people might perceive it like why he's using an emotional angle to raise the money, right?
Exactly.
Emotional angle, uh, helped a lot of people to get attached to each other, especially in the relationships part, right? But
Yeah.
when it comes to the money into the picture, it has been taken to the very different way in the past as well. We have seen in the history too. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think I mean, good takeaways for sure. So we are about to wrap up, but before we do that, uh, so we are into Web3 space, right? And Web3 and India into Web3, or specifically the blockchain space, the developers are start working and the people are start working right from their 20, 21 years of age as well, right? Now they
Yeah.
have learned a skill for sure. They are too young right now. People, I mean, I'm not judging based on that with on the age number. Uh, I know a few people who are in the 20 to 23, and they still have raised a good amount of money from the market as well. Maybe because of the problem in the solutions that they're speaking about. So before we wrap up, right, would like to understand this, if there's any young founder coming on board and hustling and grinding and trying to raise some money out of it. What are those piece of advice coming from Miss Shalini that dude, you should be avoiding these few things and focus on the rest. So what is that rest, and what is those few things that avoided and the are taken forward as well?
Yeah. So if one advice that I have to give in a quick way is be clear, concise,
Yeah.
and confident.
Yeah.
Focus on the problem, the solution, the market potential, and your traction. Keep it simple and avoid overloading your audience with information. And always end with a strong call to action. So that's like the summary of
This
my
one,
advice. Yeah.
for sure. I think you, during the conversation, you mentioned about a point that you should be able to explain something to a 5-year-old child, right?
Yeah.
Now it's a kind of hypothesis, but let's say if we do host a session with a partnership with some school, having some 11th and 12th, standard students in a small
Yeah.
class, and having these founders to pitch their product and explain their product to these guys. Uh,
Yeah.
Let me know if you are able to, if you are up for it. I think we probably can approach our school and host a small online workshop out of it. Do you
Absolutely.
feel
That
we
would
can
be
do
a
it?
fantastic. Yeah, that would be a fantastic exercise to test our abilities to pitch. It's a very good and critical audience. They'll be very open to give feedback as well. You should get feedback from the students if they've understood it or not.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the amount of questions that come can be directly proportional to telling you how good your pitch was. So
Yeah.
if they're
Yeah.
curious, that's fine. But yeah, it would be a good exercise for all the founders, I'm sure, and we should do
I
it.
think I think we should do it. Yeah, correct. Yeah. I mean, let's probably take it offline for sure. And
Absolutely.
thank you so much, Shalini, for joining us. Looking forward to having such sessions in the near future as well.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Sankalp.
Thank you.